Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, practice makes the podcast. The first episode of this Human Meme podcast was released on July 18, 2016. And so we have been diligently and faithfully publishing with you for over 2 years. And yes, you can consider this particular episode as your tune-up update for what's happening here behind the scenes. Plus, we'll have a bonus shared at the end of this podcast to prove we're always learning if we only pay attention. We currently have 250 Human Meme podcast episodes either published or in queue waiting for publishing. And today, this day, seemed like the right moment to reflect with you on how and why and what we are doing here. Remember, the average life of a podcast is 24 episodes. And then those podcasts are done, finished. Publishing is complete. And so we here in Human Meme have already multiplied that average 10 times. And so what? 250 episodes of what? For what? Well, that's the next big question. We have these 250 episodes to be discovered, explored, found. And that, my human meme friend, is the tough part of podcasting. And it is so different from book publishing or blog publishing or web page publishing. Because publishing podcast episodes are all about exposure and trying to resurrect the prior life. You want your podcast episodes to be found everywhere, not really in just one place. So, does the world really need 250 episodes of Human Meme? Probably not. But they're there anyway, alive, hoping, waiting for a second, or a third, or 100th life. But one thing I've discovered over the arc of this Human Meme podcast is that the shows tend not to index well in search returns for some reason. And that seems to be true of a lot of podcasts. I'm not sure if that's an exposure problem, a publicity problem. Is it a links issue? An indexing problem with the Google? Or is it just because there are a lot of podcasts, and if you're ubiquitous, if you are everywhere as required by the publishing process, you just lose your punch and your staying power? Well, perhaps. It might also be a Libsyn problem. Libsyn is our podcast host, and Libsyn does not offer a lot of really good free ways of promoting or exposing your podcast in a native way. But if you pay a lot more to play for exposure with Libsyn, you might risk some exposure. But the basic web page Libsyn provides is very 1996 in design and feel. And the native Libsyn search engine for your page, your home page for your podcast, doesn't really return deep content very well. And so these are all things you cannot really change or modify, but they all hurt your link's depth bottom line. Well, it is what it is. And Libsyn is the biggest publishing player in podcasting. So these problems are not singular to human meme, and they tend to be universal matters of organic discovery. Though I have learned Libsyn also has a bit of a problem properly handling domain redirects for HTTPS and SSL certificates. It's a big mess right now that they're going to have to fix soon. And I am encouraged to know Libsyn recently purchased Pair Networks, a web serving company. So maybe Libsyn will get even faster and better in performance and in presentation with that acquisition. Go Pittsburgh! So far, your favorite Human Meme podcast has just been the two of us, me and you. Sometimes we hear from other people and we manage other voices and find other machines, but only in the realm of the pre-recorded dead. We have no other live voices with us other than our shared thoughts. Maybe that will change in the future. I get a lot of interview requests, and while that may be an interesting path to choose, so far, I have left the Human Meme podcast more thoughtful and intimate with you and not proactively outside interactive. I also wonder if I decided to use an interview format now and then, that perhaps I should start a whole different podcast for something like that. Because other people would change the tone and the timbre of what we have going on here. But, then again, maybe I'm wrong about that too, and the occasional interview here wouldn't be so awful bad. But once you start down that interview road, it is a hard one not to keep following out of convenience and ease of preparation. Because all the tension for perfection is on the person being interviewed and not really on the person doing the asking. And so, moving on to other thoughts, in creating these Human Meme podcasts, as you may know as a loyal listener, noise is always a problem. I would love to one day have a dedicated recording booth. Not a studio, just a little booth. One that would also allow me to record more often at any time of the day. Right now, on the days I hope to record, I find myself chasing silence more than getting the production absolutely right. But right now, I record early in the morning when people in this big building where I live are not yet quite awake. And the ongoing construction projects all around this building in the neighborhood haven't yet started for the day. And yes, I would prefer to record only when I like or want or when the idea strikes me. But I have to be more practical than evangelical on that, or nothing would ever get done. So my life is fighting sound, bad sounds, other sounds. In preparation for a recording, I turn off the heating and air conditioning. I close all the windows. I draw the shades. I put up temporary soundproof barriers of foam blocks and movie set quality sound deadening blankets. I turn off all fans. I turn off the refrigerator. I cover all the drains to prevent dripping sounds. I do my best to create a soundless cocoon for recording, but my studio is right next to the building elevators and the garbage room, and so I spend most of my recording time waiting for the whoosh of the elevators to pass and for the clang of the trash room door to close home. And the dogs, oh, the dogs. You know all about the dogs if you've listened to this Human Meme podcast. And the dogs, usually at this time of day, are still sleeping early in the morning. But once the dogs awaken, they are more barking than alive. It's a problem. Okay, so enough of the silence and the sound. Here's how we technically form what you get. My current technical setup is this. And you know that this, what remains, is what sustains me after the big flood we had in our previous location. We haven't recovered yet. 18 months ago, we lost about $10,000 in recording equipment, and we still haven't been made whole. Not by a penny, not by a pound. It's been a slow road back to sound production. And so the after-the-flood replacements we have, for now, are this and these. I'm speaking to you through a Shure SM7B microphone. It's a great value for the price, and many podcasters use this microphone because it is highly directional. And that means you can point it at your mouth, and the rest of the room is sort of dissipated in the tension of being found by the microphone. We are recording this Human Meme podcast on Hindenburg Journalist Pro software. We edit the podcast in Hindenburg, and then we publish copies of the completed episodes to SoundCloud for private safekeeping and to Libsyn for final editing and publication queuing. We use Mogami gold and platinum cables and a USB pre-2 sound processor that plugs into our Mac. And that sound processor from Sound Devices is really the key to the great sound we get. And that's pretty much it. On the technical side, keeping everything smooth and simple is the best way to keep production humming. We also used to publish this Human Meme podcast 5 days a week, and we cut that down to once a week after the flood. And for now, once a week is working in the ongoing battle to find silence in a noisy world. It is better to publish not as much and sound right than to publish all the time and lose quality control. Now, here's your bonus. It's a moment of learning, shared, spread, and fully memed. I found this fragment of genius this week while visiting thevirts.com. TheVirts.com. And The Virts is a website where you can buy decks of cards, playing cards, special playing cards, and you then practice cardism to become a cardist, a card flourisher, if you will. And cardistry is not magic, it's not gambling, it's a performance. Cardistry is the original fidget spinner, but with much more elegance and a touch of mystery in beauty. Cardistry, in its most basic form, is manipulating a deck of playing cards in your hands and fingers with purpose and artistry. And cardistry is quite elegant and compelling. And there are some videos, teaching videos, on thevirts.com you can purchase to learn and master the technique. And those videos are high quality and excellent. And now I will share one bit of advice that I paid for on theverts.com, and that I'll offer you free now as a member in good standing of this Human Meme podcast. In the Cardistry videos on the Verts, we are taught that practice makes permanent. And I like that a lot. Our Verts teacher explains it this way. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. You must practice right, or you will permanently get it wrong. Yes. How many people do we know, including ourselves, who think they know something and act upon that wrong notion, and in the end they think that they're right, when they have really only cemented everything they know and believe permanently wrong? Be aware. Know your mistakes. Don't just learn from your mistakes. Remove your mistakes. Practice with patience. Practice with intention. Practice to perfection, but only when you know you are practicing the right way. Because practice makes permanent. Practice makes the podcast. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.